Starting July 27th, we are getting a wave of Hisuian Forme Pokemon added into Pokemon Go. These three boys here on screen, we got the Hisuian Growlithe, the Hisuian Sneasle, and then the Hisuian Qwilfish. Will their evolutions be available right away, or will they put an embargo on them like they did with Hisuian Electrode? That we don't know right now, but in this video I'm going to talk about just how good all 6 of these potential Pokemon may be in Pokemon Go. So let's get into it. So starting out, we got Hisuian Growlithe and Hisuian Arcanine. And just to, reiterate here, we don't know if they're going to evolve right away. For whatever reason, they put a little time embargo on the Electrode. They might do that for these evolutions too. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Ryan Swag ain't lying to you by telling you about Hisuian Arcanine ahead of time. But we're going to talk about it ahead of time. So these two Pokemon are rock fire type Pokemon. Now when it comes to the PvP side of things, usually that means that they're kind of dead in the water. You're doubly weak to ground type attacks and water type attacks, neutral to grass even. What's a fire type doing, being neutral to grass? But I think these guys have some interesting potential when you consider, the context of the Great League and Ultra League PvP metas right now. Because we got a lot of Registeel, steel type Pokemon, we got a lot of Walrein, and then we also got a lot of Trevenant happening in both metas. And then when it comes to the Ultra League specifically, there's a fair amount of Charm users and Talonflame running amok as well. So on paper, these Pokemon very clearly have their problems being, rock fire type Pokemon, but they do fit in that extra special annoying kind of way where they could possibly shake some stuff up. So when it comes to their move pools, we don't have a data mine right now on what attacks that they're going to get specifically, but Pokemon Legends Arceus has a very condensed, limited move pool to begin with, and they always pull the moves from the main series games for Pokemon Go. So it's pretty easy to predict what it's going to get because there's so few options for it to, utilize to begin with. This works out for a lot of Pokemon in a pretty good way, typically. For Arcanine, it's a little bit trickier because while it does have good fast moves like Ember and Snarl to work with, and then it also has some very okay ones like Thunderfang and Firefang to work with, its charge move pool is a lot more limited, especially on the fire side of the force. I think the only fire type charge move it can learn is Flamethrower, and Flamethrower isn't bad, but it is a pretty mediocre charge move in Pokemon Go that no Pokemon really wish that they'd have. They'd much rather have like Overheat or Flame Charge, not Flamethrower. But that's the only fire type option it has going on. I think even with that limitation, Hisuian Arcanine is still workable though, because if it does get Ember, that should be enough fire for, Registeel, and that's the main thing that we're riding the fire for. So if it does at least get Ember, and then it pairs that up with like Rock Slide, I think it'll be functionally okay. And then it could get anything else for charge moves, and I think it really wouldn't change its position on the board there. It mostly wants to get that Ember, and it wants to get that Rock Slide. If it gets Crunch, that'd be fantastic. Stretch goal, give it Crunch, right? And then I guess it's going to get Flamethrower anyways, so we'll get a 4th charge move then. Well, for the 4th charge move, we got Wild Charge, Stone Edge, Play Rough, Outrage. We got a whole litany of attacks that we could possibly get there. The big ticket item, though, is going to be Ember and Rock Slide. And don't think that Growlithe is left out of the fun either, because it is a Fire Rock type Pokemon. So when you look at the Little Cup, specifically at the Element Cup, that's pretty good because, you got Vulpix ruling the roost with its fire normal type attacks. Well, you resist those attacks because you're sub-rock type and a fire type, right? You got Cottony, Charmer, you're a fire type, right? So big new fire type on campus, basically being what Slugma wishes it was, which is a sub-rock type Pokemon, so it can get those resistances. So I think Growlithe does have a pretty good potential to make a splash there. Of course, if it gets the right attacks. I think it really does need an early charge move to stand out in those little cups, so fingers crossed for you, Growlithe. Next up, we have Hisuian Sneasle and the Sneasler. This Pokemon, it sure is a Pokemon, right? At any rate, these Pokemon are pretty interesting because they are poison fighting type Pokemon, which means they are counter users that can resist opposing counter users, and they take neutral damage from Charm as well, which means they do stand, a fighting chance against Charm users and Fairy types in general, much like our friend Toxicroak, the other poison fighting type Pokemon. So in order for these Pokemon to stand out, they have to get a good move pool or they'll just kind of dump like most things. Well, unlike Arcanine, these Pokemon do have a premium fast move to work with, and that is Shadow Claw. But the question is, will they get it? There are some other options too. There's Quick Attack and there's Rock Smash. Those are 2 attacks, right? Which means they don't have to give it Shadow Claw. They could give it one of these other 2 attacks. There's also Poison Jab and what else you learned? Snarl, right? Snarl's okay. People think Snarl's good. I really think it is just a copium attack that some Pokemon just work out with because of their stats and their charge moves. That's a whole different conversation though. There's 4 moves. I think Iron Tail as well. Yeah, Iron Tail 5. There are 5 other moves it could learn other than Shadow Claw. So will it get Shadow Claw? We don't know. But if it does get Shadow Claw, then it very easily could be a good meta pick because you're resisting opposing counter users and you could probably hit them back neutral with the Ghost type fast move. Then when it comes to charge moves, we got Close Combat to work with. And then we also have the coveted Shadow Ball. And I think that if it gets Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball, that this Pokemon's going to be meta. The other moves, they could all be pretty garbage. Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball on a fighting type Pokemon that resists other fighting type attackers, neutral to Charmers. I think that could be it for it, and it would be a really good Pokemon then. But will it get both Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball? That much is not certain, right? Not certain at all. For the other moves, I think Poison Jab can be expected. They got Poison Claws, they're Poison type Pokemon. It would make sense for them to get Poison Jab. I think they could be okay with Poison Jab and Shadow Ball, but lacking Shadow Ball is going to be a pretty big count against it because for the other charge moves, Close Combat is great, but we've got Aerial Ace, Swift, Drain Punch, X Scissor, like Hyper Beam. I guess Hyper Beam isn't that bad, but a lot of the other charge moves are pretty awful. So kind of all hope rides on the Shadow Ball, I'd have to say for the most part. If we do get Shadow Claw, that would be pretty fantastic too. And then I don't know Sneasle's stats off the top of my head, but I think it can fit into the Great League pretty well. So either of these 2 Pokemon getting good move pools could be pretty great for it. And then we also have the Fighting Cup coming up eventually, right? So another poison fighting type Pokemon in the mix could be pretty good, but it is a poison fighting type Pokemon, so that's just another thing for Throw to Zen Headbutt at. So would they be that good? I guess it depends on what moves they get. Fingers crossed that we get the Shadow Ball. I doubt it, but it could happen. And then finally, we got Hisuian Qwilfish and Overqwil. These are dark poison type Pokemon, and for the limited move pool that they have to work with, they got Poison Sting and they got Poison Jab, and I think that's it. I don't think they learn any other fast move eligible attacks. Let me look through here quick. Yeah, no. Now, it's going to be Poison Sting and Poison Jab. If they don't get those 2 attacks, or at least one of them, they could just give it one fast move, then that'd be really weird. So, yeah, Poison Stingers for sure. Poison Jabbers for sure. Poison Dark type Pokemon. Things are sounding pretty good. Where things start to take a little bit of a turn, though, is that there's no crunch access. So if you're comparing this to Drapion, a Poison Stinger, dark poison type Pokemon, it's got Poison Sting, it's got Crunch, right? Crunch is probably the best dark type charge move in the game right now. They don't get it. And so yeah, do you want like the bulkier one, Drapion? Do you want, crank that power up, Shadow Drapion, more options? And then same thing with Skuntank. Skuntank, Shadow Skuntank, they're Poison Jabbers, dark poison, crunch access, nice, counter coverage too with the flamethrower on top of it. These guys don't get it. What they do get is Dark Pulse, and Dark Pulse is good. It's a strong attack, and it does set them apart a little bit because I guess they technically have a stronger, auxiliary dark type charge move to work with compared to Crunch, even though Crunch is technically a lot better. So, they could stand out in that way. And then in their move pool, they also could possibly learn Icy Wind. I don't think Niantic would give either of them Icy Wind, but the possibility is there. And if they do give them Icy Wind, well then, compared to the other Dark Poison type Pokemon, then they would be standing out in a pretty big way, because Icy Wind is a pretty fantastic attack. They also have, Aqua Tail, Ice Beam, and Sludge Bomb to work with. So some pretty standard stuff for, Qwilfish Pokemon, right? So yeah, a Poison Dark Qwilfish, more or less, is what we're gonna have. I don't think it's gonna stand out too much unless it gets the Icy Wind, either of them, because Drapion and Skuntank are probably gonna do it better. But when it comes to like, I don't know, a cup specific format or like doing an ABB type line, well, these could be the ABB buddies. You want to do double poison sting, double poison sting. You want to do double poison jab, double poison jab. I don't know why you're using them instead of Nidoqueen to pair with Skuntank, but hey, you know what? I'm not judging, right? Like, it could work out. So they got potential, but I think for the most part, they're going to be like mid side grades that are a little bit interesting. If they get Icy Wind, then obviously pretty big. And then before I wrap things up here, I know I didn't mention anything about raids. None of these Pokemon will be good in raids, as far as I'm aware. So there you go. None of them are raid viable. So that about wraps it up for the 3 to 6 new Hisuian Pokemon that we're going to get in Pokemon Go. All of them do have some interesting potential in PvP. All 6 of them have potential, right? But will they get the right moves? I guess we'll have to wait and see, right? We only got a couple days left before we reasonably get the data mine, so fingers crossed, right? If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. As you guys can tell, things are getting even more sparse behind me here in the office. No, the fiance did not leave me and take all of her plushies with her. We're in the process of moving, so clearing out the apartment, moving all of our stuff to the house. It's a process, one day at a time. We're not in a big rush here. But yeah, if you're wondering about the back, that's why the back is mostly an empty wall.